The priest stood by my hospital bed. "Joe, forgive Ali before it's too late." I looked at him and said one word: never. At 67, with death knocking at my door, I'm finally ready to tell you why. What Ali did to me was worse than any punch, worse than losing. He destroyed something that can never be rebuilt. When Joe Frazier said he would never forgive Muhammad Ali, the world didn't understand. This was Smokin' Joe, the man who epitomized Philadelphia toughness, the Olympic gold medalist who worked in a slaughterhouse while training to become champion, a fighter whose left hook could break bones and spirits alike. But beneath that warrior exterior was a wound so deep that even death couldn't heal it. To understand the hatred, you first need to understand the friendship, because Frazier and Ali weren't always enemies. In the beginning, they were brothers in a sport that didn't always welcome them. The year was 1959. A young Cassius Clay from Louisville was making waves in amateur boxing with his speed and charisma. Joe Frazier from Beaufort, South Carolina, was punching sides of beef in a Philadelphia slaughterhouse, training at night in a converted garage. Their paths crossed at various amateur tournaments. They shared something profound: two young black men from the South trying to make it in boxing during the civil rights era. When Clay won gold at the 1960 Rome Olympics, Frazier celebrated his victory. When Frazier captured gold in Tokyo 4 years later, Clay, now Muhammad Ali, was among the first to call with congratulations. They understood each other's journey because they were living parallel lives. The friendship deepened through the early 1960s. They would spar together occasionally, Ali making trips to Philadelphia, Frazier sometimes visiting Ali's camp. These weren't just training sessions. They were strategy meetings between two future kings of boxing, planning how to elevate the sport and demand the respect and money that black champions deserved. Then came the moment that would define their relationship. March 1967. Ali refused induction into the U.S. Army, citing religious beliefs and opposition to the Vietnam War. The boxing establishment's response was swift and brutal. They stripped him of his title, revoked his boxing license, and effectively banned him from making a living in the only profession he knew. America turned its back on Ali. Promoters who once courted him now pretended he didn't exist. Fellow fighters distanced themselves, afraid of guilt by association. Ali went from champion to pariah overnight, facing potential prison time and financial ruin. But Joe Frazier didn't abandon him. During Ali's 3.5-year exile from boxing, Frazier became his unlikely lifeline. When Ali needed a place to train to stay sharp, Frazier opened his Philadelphia gym. When Ali ran out of money to feed his family, Frazier quietly provided financial support. Not loans, gifts. When reporters asked about Ali's situation, Frazier defended his right to his beliefs, even as it put his own reputation at risk. This wasn't just professional courtesy. Frazier genuinely believed in helping a brother in need. His own team questioned the wisdom of keeping his biggest rival ready for an eventual return. His manager, Yank Durham, called it training your own executioner. But Frazier saw it differently. This was about something bigger than boxing. By 1970, Frazier had become the undisputed heavyweight champion, destroying Jimmy Ellis and Bob Foster. He'd earned his crown the hard way, fighting through a murderer's row of contenders, while Ali was in exile. Then the Supreme Court overturned Ali's conviction. Suddenly, Muhammad Ali was free to fight again. The stage was set for what would become the most anticipated fight in boxing history. Two undefeated champions, the establishment's champion versus the people's champion. The fight of the century at Madison Square Garden, March 8, 1971. But something changed in Ali when the fight was signed. The man who Frazier had protected began a campaign of psychological warfare, unlike anything boxing had seen. It started with typical pre-fight banter, calling Frazier slow, predictable, easy to hit. Standard boxing promotion that Frazier could handle. Then Ali crossed a line that would forever destroy their friendship. He began attacking not just Frazier the fighter, but Frazier the man. More specifically, Frazier the black man. Ali started calling him an Uncle Tom, suggesting Frazier was a puppet of white establishment. He implied Frazier couldn't speak for himself, that his words were scripted by white handlers. For a man who had worked his whole life to earn respect, who had stood up for Ali when it was dangerous to do so, these attacks cut deeper than any physical blow could. The transformation of Muhammad Ali from grateful friend to cruel antagonist reached its peak in early 1971. In press conferences and television appearances, Ali didn't just promote the fight. He launched a character assassination that would haunt Frazier for the rest of his life. The most damaging attack came when Ali began calling Frazier a gorilla. Not once in the heat of an argument, but repeatedly, systematically, in front of millions. He would beat his chest like King Kong when Frazier's name was mentioned. He would make ape sounds during interviews. On one infamous occasion, he showed up at Frazier's training camp with a toy gorilla, pulling its chain while calling it Joe. The impact on Frazier's family was devastating. His eldest son, Marvis, then 11 years old, came home from school bloodied and in tears. Children were making monkey sounds at him, repeating Ali's words, saying his father belonged in a jungle. The cruelty had spread from Ali's mouth to playground taunts that would scar the Frazier children for years. What made it worse was the laughter. White reporters laughed. Some black reporters laughed. The public laughed. Ali had turned Joe Frazier into a punchline, stripping him of his dignity in a way that transcended sports rivalry. On March 8, 1971, Frazier channeled all that pain into the most important fight of his life. For 15 rounds, he absorbed Ali's best shots while marching forward with devastating pressure. In the 11th round, Ali's legs buckled. In the 15th, Frazier landed the left hook that would define his career. A perfect shot that sent Ali crashing to the canvas, his feet flying up in the air. Frazier won by unanimous decision, retaining his title and handing Ali his first professional defeat. But the victory felt hollow. The next morning, Ali was on television claiming the fight was fixed, that white judges gave Frazier the decision because he was their kind of champion. Even in defeat, Ali wouldn't give Frazier respect. They fought twice more. Ali won a close decision in 1974, then survived the brutal thriller in Manila in 1975 when Frazier's trainer, Eddie Futch, wouldn't let him come out for the 15th round. Both rematches were wars that shortened both men's careers. But the physical damage was nothing compared to the psychological wounds. Even after retiring, Ali continued diminishing Frazier's legacy. In interviews, he would call Frazier ignorant, claim he was too stupid to understand strategy, mock his speaking style. When Marvis Frazier began his own boxing career, Ali publicly called him the son of a gorilla trying to box. The years brought a cruel irony. As Ali developed Parkinson's disease, the world transformed him into a saint. The same media that had laughed at his gorilla taunts now painted him as boxing's greatest ambassador. His lighting of the Olympic torch in 1996 was seen as a triumph of the human spirit. Frazier was expected to celebrate alongside everyone else. But forgiveness never came. How could it? Ali never apologized. Never acknowledged the damage he'd done, never admitted that his words had gone too far. The world wanted Frazier to forgive for the sake of boxing history, but they didn't understand the depth of the wounds. In 2009, Frazier was diagnosed with liver cancer. The diagnosis was terminal. Ali, now severely limited by Parkinson's, made a final attempt at reconciliation. He came to Frazier's gym in Philadelphia with an entourage and cameras, hoping to bury their decades-old feud. Frazier refused to see him. When Ali persisted, Frazier finally emerged. The two old warriors faced each other one last time. Ali, barely able to speak, whispered something about burying the hatchet. Frazier's response was swift and cutting. "You should have brought a shovel, because my feelings are buried deeper than any grave." On November 7, 2011, Joe Frazier died in Philadelphia. His family reported that even in his final hours, when asked about Ali, his response was consistent: "I'll never forgive him." Ali attended the funeral, serving as a pallbearer, tears streaming down his face. He called Frazier a great champion, a warrior, a friend. But Frazier wasn't there to hear it. He had gone to his grave with his hatred intact, refusing to give Ali the absolution the world expected. This is the complex truth of Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali, not a simple rivalry that mellowed with age, but a friendship destroyed by words that cut deeper than any punch. A reminder that in boxing, as in life, the greatest wounds are often invisible, and some betrayals can never be forgiven.